13 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few quarterbacks I would start this week. The first guy, Carson Wentz of the Indianapolis Colts. So Carson Wentz, he's been up and down this season here. But for the most part, he's put in a pretty decent season, in my opinion, is Wentz. So the last few weeks for him, week 10 versus Jacksonville, he didn't have a great game in that one. 180 yards passing. Week 11 in Buffalo, 106 yards passing, a touchdown, 18 yards rushing. And then week 12 in a tough loss versus Tampa, he had a good ball game, 306 pass yards. 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 21 yards rushing and a fumble loss. So right here, he's got a good matchup with the Houston Texans, who obviously can't stop no one. This is a division ball game. I know Jonathan Taylor is going to do a lot of work in this one, where Wentz's stats won't be that great. But right here, I still think Wentz puts up a decent fantasy day. And he's a quarterback to start this week. Anywhere from 18 to 20 fantasy points, I definitely could see this week. The next quarterback's Matthew Stafford, the Los Angeles Rams. So Stafford and the Rams now, they've struggled the last 3 ball games, losing 3 in a row here. And Stafford in 2 of those 3, he didn't do much for fantasy owners. Week 9 versus the Titans, 294 pass yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Week 10 at the 49ers in that one, 243 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 those. And week 12 at Green Bay, 302 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an throw with a 2-point conversion and a fumble loss. So in that ball game versus the Packers, a lot of garbage time. He hit Von Jefferson deep on a deep ball for a touchdown, and Odell Beckham in that one. But besides those 2 plays, it was tough sledding for Matthew Stafford in this Ram team. But I think he could get right versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And right now, this Ram team's got to bounce out of their slump and get things going. And I think Stafford in this one could have a big fantasy day. And he's definitely a quarterback I would start this week. The next quarterback's Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings. A underrated season here for this Viking team. And this guy, he puts up numbers pretty much each and every week, his Cousins. So the last few games for him, week 10 at the Chargers, 294 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, and a fumble loss. Week 11 versus the Packers, 341 pass yards, 3 touchdowns in that one, a -4 yards rushing. And then week 12 at San Francisco, 238 pass yards and 2 touchdowns with an intho. So week 13 here, another good matchup for Cousins and this pretty high-powered offense over there for the Vikings. At the Detroit Lions, and obviously one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in pro football this season. I think the Vikings are going to have their way. And I think Kirk Cousins in this one easily could go for 200 to 300 yards in this one with 2 or 3 touchdowns. Out back, I would start Derek Carr of the Las Vegas Raiders. So he's Jekyll and Hyde this season here, is Derek Carr. 1 week he has a huge week. The next week he don't do much. But this guy, I guess you just got to ride the course with him. That's what I've came to learn here with Derek Carr this season. You're going to take the good with the bad. So the last few games here for Carr, week 10 versus the Chiefs in that one, 261 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 18 yards on the ground. Week 11 versus Cincinnati, a bad ball game, 215 pass yards, touchdown, and a fumble loss. But on Thanksgiving at the Dallas Cowboys, he went off in that one, 373 pass yards, a touchdown, and 21 yards rushing. So right here, him and Deshaun Jackson in that ball game at the Dallas Cowboys had a great rapport. And they were hitting deep on a few deep balls in that one. They really one that set the tone in the first 3 minutes of the game, hitting them on a 58-yard touchdown to start it off. And this week, he's got a great matchup versus the Washington football team that gives up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. Even though I know they shut down Russell Wilson and that offense for the most part. Right here, I think, though, Derek Carr and this Raider offense, especially at home, are going to have a throwing party in this one. And I wouldn't surprise me to see Carr get anywhere from 25 to 30 fantasy points in this one. And the 5th and final quarterback I would start this week is Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. So I expect a shootout here with the Bengals and the Los Angeles Chargers. And Joe Burrow, what a season it's been for the most part here, coming off of a torn ACL. I know the last 3 weeks here for him haven't been great in terms of fantasy football. Week 9 versus Cleveland, 282 passing, 2 those. Week 11 at the Raiders, 148 pass yards, a touchdown, and a fumble loss. In week 12 versus the Steelers, 190 passing yards, touchdown, interception, 8 yards rushing, and a touchdown. So this week versus the Chargers, the ball's going to be in his hands more in this one. I know the last 2 ball games and blowout victories here for the Bengals, it's been all Joe Mixon with huge ball games. But right here, them and the Chargers, I think we get a good shootout this week here. And I think Joe Burrow's going to have to throw the ball at least 25 to 35 time range in this one. and I think he could have a good game because the Chargers defense, they're not really that good this season versus stopping teams. So right here, I think Burrow and Jamar Chase have two good games in this one, and he's definitely a quarterback I would start this week. So that's a few quarterbacks I would start for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.